Begin the current Daf Mesech Kesuvos Daf Nun Beis. Begin on the bottom of the Nalvin Beis, 2 lines up in the bottom of the Amud. The Gemara continues explaining the halacha of our previous Mishnah regarding the Tanoi Ksuba, the stipulations of the Ksuba, which they are one of them, which is the one we're continuing to talk about, regarding if a woman is taken as a captive, the obligation of the husband is to redeem her. Joining today's Daf. Some things discussed in today's Daf are, we get a little bit more specific in regarding redeeming the wife in a case where a Kohen Gadol married an almana. What's significant about that? That's obviously forbidden to be done. She was taken captive, but Kedushin is typhus, you're considered married. So there's a machlik is whether he's obligated to redeem her in that situation. Another case also is a husband made a neder that his wife cannot have any benefit from him. That's obviously that he can't take her back as a wife. But she was taken as a captive. So the machlik is here also whether he's obligated to redeem her. Well, later on has a discussion whether Yershim have to redeem a wife who was taken captive, and then the husband died. How much must the husband pay to redeem his wife from captivity? Some of the Tanoi Ksuba that we're discussing today's Daf are, it says in the Ksuba, B'nen dichrin de havelechem minoi, inun yirkin kesef ksubasach esach chukoyin de machuin. So what happens if his wife dies before him? So when he subsequently dies, the sons of each wife will inherit their mother's Ksuba, and it won't be equally divided among all his children, which really bad to him it is, a Yerusha from the father, because he already inherited his wife. The reason why they were instituted this idea was we want the father, the shver, to write a big nadin for the item, so that he knows it's going to go to his eineklich, it's going to go to his wife's kids, not to any other wives' kids. Another Tanai Ksub is Banan Nukfin de Havelichem Enoi Yahavin Yasmin Bevesim Esazim Nichse Adet Telchum Leguvrin, that her daughters from him receive support from his estate until they get married, they get fed from that estate. And the third one is she's going to be supported, the widow, by his estate and continue to live in his house as long as she remains a widow. So we begin the current Daf of Nunal from a base 2 lines up at the bottom of the Amud. In the previous Mishnah, we were mentioning the Tanoi Ksuba, and one of them we mentioned was regarding a kohen. As the Mishnah, as the Gemara quotes in the Mishnah, Bekehenes, by the wife of a kohen. The Ksuba actually says that if you get taken as a captive, I'm going to redeem you and hadrinach lemedina seich. It says a different wording than Eshes Yisrael. By Eshes Yisrael it says, I will take you back as a wife, into it. But by Eshes Kayin, if she's taken as a captive, you're not taking her back home, to your own home, because she's nenes, she becomes asura lebala. Rather it says by the Eshes Kayin that I'm going to take you back lemedina seich, I'm going to redeem you and return you to your father's house, because she's forbidden to the husband. He has obligation to redeem her. Now, the Gemara brings a machlekes relating to this halacha. Amar Abai says, Amon lo kohen gadol. What happens if a widow married kohen gadol that's biblically prohibited? The Gemara later on tells us on the Kufim Abayz that she has a ksuba, even though biblically they're not supposed to get married. Kedushin is typhus, and she has a ksuba. Now, a Tanai Ksuba, which is, Rashi points out, there's 2 types of Tanoi Ksuba. In general, what happens is when there's a prohibited marriage, we don't want them to stay married. We'll give her certain things that will be for her to cash and carry, to leave, but not to stay. So the stipulations of the Ksuba, which is to leave, together with the Ksuba, the Almana that married the Kohen Gadol, although it's a prohibited marriage, she gets. But a Tanai Ksuba, one of the stipulations that are inherent in the Ksuba, that will be for her to stay married, for example, getting fed meals, getting doctor bills. The Gemara in Yavamas tells us that Almana Kohen Gadol doesn't get there on Daf Pehem at Al, because we don't want her to stay married. We don't want to encourage this marriage. For leaving, we'll give her the gift. She'll get a ksuba, she'll get this like ksuba. Now, Abai is telling us that the stipulation of the ksuba that he has to redeem her from captivity, the Almana Kohen Gadol has. Chayiv Levdaisa, he has to redeem her. Why? Because originally he was responsible for this halacha. Why? Because even a kosher marriage, when a kohen marries any wife, the stipulation is that I'm going to take you back as a wife. Every Eshes kohen, when she gets taken captivity, she's asur labala. So every ksuba says, Oisvinuch le medina seich. So here also, Shani Kairaba, I'm going to say the same thing regarding Almana Kohen Gadol, that a Bekehen is by the wife of the Kohen, Adrinach le medina seich. I'm going to take you back to your father's house. So this is also a Tanai Ksuba of Lemishkel Umeipak, which we give the woman that Ksuba, and the fact that she is forbidden. What's the difference? Anyway, you were going to do Adirin Nechlim Medinasech anytime it's Eishes Kohen, and you want to do that B'chlal. The Amon, we don't want to encourage the marriage, but the Tanai Ksuba is not to encourage the marriage, is to have her leave. So Diva says, Abaya, Amalika and Gadol, you have an obligation to redeem her. Now, that's one case. Another case continues on the top of the Beis Medalav, Mamzeres and Nesina Yisrael. Now, a Mamzeres is an illegitimate woman. Her parents were prohibited to have that marriage. And Nesina is also from the Nesina. When one of them gets married to Yisrael, even though she gets a Ksuba, and a T'nai of Ksuba, which is to leave, she will not get this T'nai Ksuba of Pirkaina being redeemed. Ein Chayav L'Taisa does not have to redeem her, because originally he was not responsible for this. Why not? What's the difference in Amalekah and Gadol? She'ena Nikayraba, because I cannot recite what we write for Ksuba V'Eishes Yisrael. What do we write over there? V'Yisvinach li le'intu. I'm going to take you back as a wife. That's the T'nai Ksuba for a Yisraelis, which you cannot do to a Mamzeres, a Nesina. They're forbidden to you. So since it doesn't fit into the words of the Ksuba, Taish discusses the whole Dirasha that we do for the words of the Ksuba sounds like Rishamai, but we darshan the words of the Ksuba. Does it fit into the words? Says Abai, that's important. By the Amalekah and Gadol, it's prohibited, but it fits into the words of the Ksuba. I'm going to take you back Limedina Seich. That's true. I'm going to send you out to your father's house anywhere I was supposed to send you out, because you're Amon, I'm not supposed to be married to you. So if you take captive, so then I'll fulfill that. But Mamzeres and the Sin Yisrael, I can't fulfill the words of Eishes Yisrael of I'm going to take you back into it, because that's not true. You prohibited to me. You're Mamzeres, you're Nesina. So the difference is Abai, you're not going to have a responsibility to redeem her. That's Abai's opinion. Brother Amar, he disagrees. By Mamzeres and Nesina, he holds like Abai, that he's not responsible to redeem her. But by Amalekah and Gadol, he disagrees in Abai, and he says it's not true. Originally, this Kohen who's married to the Amana was not Meshubid Fadrinach Limedinasech. Why not? Because Kol She'is Hashiviyah Goyrama, if it's the prohibition of the captivity that's causing her to have to be sent out of his house, because she's raped by the captors, and Eishes comes to Labala, then it's Chayav L'Bdeis, then he has to redeem her. But if it's Issa Dava'ache Goyrama, but if it's something else causing that she has to go to Medina Seich, not back to his house, which is because she's an Amana, he does not have to redeem her. He was never Meshubid, because the Tanai of the Ksuba of a Yisrael and a Kohen is the same, which is that she's supposed to be permitted to you. Le'intu. It's by a Kohen where he stipulates with her that even if you're subsequently going to become forbidden because of your captivity, you're not going to lose out the redemption. But if you originally were forbidden, then that doesn't qualify for the halacha of Ishtaboi, that Hadrinach, I'm going to take you back. But it ultimately becomes Limedinasech because of the captivity. But if it's something else, the Amana part, that makes it forbidden, no. Then, says Rava, she's not going to get the T'nai Ksuba of the Pirkaina of redemption. That's Machlek Zabai and Rav. Says the Gemara, Leme Ketanoi. Let's say this Machlek Zabai and Rav is Machlek is Tanoi, which it says a similar case in the following price. Hamad Ishta. Someone takes a vow, telling his wife, I am having no hana from you forever. So therefore, obviously, they're not stay married, because it's inevitable that they're going to have some pleasure one from the other. So it's an equivalent of like something that's prohibited, like an Amalekah and Gadol. It seems to be a similar idea. And now this wife is taking captivity. So we have a machlekes. Rabbi Eliezer says, Paida. You have to redeem her. Even though, obviously, subsequently he's going to have to divorce her because of the death. You can't stay married to a woman that you're prohibited to have any anah. She turns on the light, she turns on anything, she's giving you anah. You can't be in the same house. So even though you're going to have to divorce her when she comes back, but you have to redeem her. Have a nice like ksubasa, you give her the ksuba and you let it go. Shloimy says, no, nice like ksubasa, but ain't the paida. You give her the ksuba and you don't have to redeem her. But the Gemara later on is going to explain the reasoning for Rabbi Shua. Amr ibn Nasan, he says, Sha'alti as-sumchas, says, I asked sumchas. Amr ibn Shua said his opinion. Then nice like ksubasa, but ain't the paida. Then he disagrees with Rabbi Eliezer. He says, no, yeah, you give her the ksuba, but you don't have to redeem her. Is that kishedira or l'b'seif nishbas? Is that when she first took the vow and then she was taking captivity? Or is it when she was taking captivity and then at the end she took the vow? In other words, or is it even when she was in captivity and then she subsequently took a vow? Even over there is where he said this halacha, that even though you could say that she's only taking a vow, meaning he's taking a vow, to let himself off the hook from redeeming because I can't take you back as a wife. Is this halacha that he's taking a vow prohibiting himself from his wife, is that specifically only if the vow was there before take captivity, or even when she's already captive? The captors took her, she's already there, and they're asking for who knows what. So he says, you know what? Yeah, asur l'mi kol hana. Says, okay, asur kol hana. I can't take you back as a wife. So then is when, did Rabbi Shua say his halacha even over there that you could get out of it that way to say that you don't have to redeem her? Amali said to me, Lo shamati. Somebody said to me, I didn't hear if Rabbi Shua said even over there. But the niran dvarim, it would seem to be shadir l'b'sev nishbas, that it's only if the vow was taken by the husband first, and then 2 weeks later she was taken in captive. Why? The amrin nishbas l'b'sev nishbas. We say the case is told about even when she first was taken captive, and then he took a vow prohibiting all hana from her. Asilalume is going to come to be making the trick to say to get out of the obligation of redeeming her, and maybe that wouldn't seem to be appropriate. That's the brisa. Says the Gemara, my love, isn't it this brisa talking about the mother eshes kohen kemiflagi? What we're talking about is that the kohen took a vow prohibiting himself from his wife. Why are we talking about a kohen? Why is the Gemara assuming that? So Rashi explains, because if you think it's talking about Yisrael, Rabbi Eliezer would not have said that you have to redeem her. Why? Because you cannot fulfill the T'nai of Kesuvos Yisrael. What does it say by the Kesuvos Yisrael? V'yisvinach li le'entu. I'm going to take her back as a wife. You can't take her back as a wife. She's forbidden enough because of a neder b'hana. So rather talking about the Eishes Kohen. Oh, what's the Kesuvos Eishes Kohen? V'adrinach lemedina seich. I'm going to take you back to your father's house. Oh, so as it says, of course, you have an obligation to redeem, because even though you have something else that's causing it, that's making it, that you cannot take her back to, mean that you have to take her back to Lemedina Seich, not the Shaviyah part. It's always was that problem. What would be the machlekes between Rabbi Eliezer and Rabbi Shua if we're talking about Eishes Kohen? Again, because Eishes Yisrael, L'chayr wouldn't make sense, because Rabbi Eliezer wouldn't say that you have to redeem. So what would the machlekes be? Machlekes Abaye and Rava. Says the Gemara, Abaye Dama Rabbi Eliezer. Abaye is the one who's saying like Rabbi Eliezer, that even if it's Dova Acha that Goyrem, which again in the case of Abaye was the Almana Shaboy. In the case of Rabbi Eliezer is the Neder Shaboy. But be that as it may, it's something else that's causing it. But even so, it fits into the words of the Ksuba, which is by Svinach Lemedina Seich, because it's Eishes Kohen. And then there's Eishes Kohen, it always has to be Lemedina Seich. So therefore, as it says, that you have to redeem. Whereas Rava says like Rabbi Shua, says, no, you don't redeem. Because ultimately, this is not because of the Shaviyah Shabai, it's because of something else. Whether it be the Neder, like in the case of Rabbi Shua, or the Almana Shabai, like Rava was talking about. Oh, then you have no obligation to redeem. It doesn't fit into the criterion of the Ksuba. Seemingly, the Machlekes Tanoim is the Machlekes Abaye Rav. Says the Gemara, Loi. No. Truth is, Rabbi Eliezer and Rabbi Shua are not disagreeing in the Machlekes Abaye and Rav. If there's something else that's causing it, if it's not through a neder, everyone would agree either like Abaye or like Rav. So what are they disagreeing about over here in this case? It's Kegoyin Shenadra Ihi, which is where the woman took the vow. V'kayim lahu. And the husband said, yes, let it be like that. Or he was quiet and he didn't nullify on the day that he heard. And we're talking about the Eishes Yisrael. So what's the machlekes? Rabbi Eliezer Savar, he held, Hu nosen etzba bein shenau. The husband put the woman's finger between her teeth, that she's biting down on her fingers. Meaning, Since he didn't nullify it, it's his fault. But Rabbi Yeshua held, no, he nasna etzba ben shineha. She's putting her finger between her teeth, and she's biting on her own fingers. In other words, she's causing to herself the nullification of her Tanai Ksuba. Because now I cannot recite by a Yisrael, a Eish Yisrael, v'yisvinachli into, I'm going to take it back as a wife, because you took the nether. So therefore, me, the husband, I'm going to be potter. That's the machlekes that they're having. Who caused the problem? If you hold that it's the husband, so Rebbe says, okay, it's your responsibility. You made it because you didn't nullify the vow. You made it that you cannot take her back as a wife. So you have to still redeem her. But according to Rabbi Shua, says, no, it's her fault. She made the nether. And therefore, now we can't do it anymore because you've forbidden to me to have any anah from you. And therefore, I don't have to redeem you. Problem is, says the Gemara, if that's true, according to Rabbi Shua, that he nasna etzba ben shineh, you tell me the reason why Rabbi Shua holds that you don't have to redeem her. It's because she stuck her finger between her teeth. And she's biting on her own fingers. And if it's her fault that now you can't take her back as a wife, think ksuba ma'avedita. What's this ksuba? Rabbi Shua's words were, you give her the ksuba and you don't have to redeem her. Why give me ksuba? Ksuba's not my fault. Anytime the woman does something that is her fault, I don't have to give her the ksuba. It's when I'm divorcing or something happens to the husband, then you have to give the ksuba. But what, he or she becomes asa to him, versus zan shild. Why is he responsible for that? Why would he have to give a ksuba? For two, moreover, it also doesn't make sense for the following reason. The Brisa, after it quoted the Machlekes Rabbi Shloimy Schwartzberg, quoted the following words. Amar Ibn Nasan says, "Shalti Asumchas." Says, I asked Sumchas. Shalom Rabbi Shloimy Schwartzberg said, "Noisim leksuba in the point when he said his opinion, then you give her the ksuba and you don't have to redeem her." He wanted to know what was the case talking about. Was it only kishe redir b'sev nishbes? Was it only that the neder was taken first and then she was taken captivity? Okay, so what are you going to do? She's asur. Like, but nishbes was it even when she was in captivity and then the neder was afterwards? Now, originally we had read it that he took the vow. So we wanted to know, he might be taking the vow after the captivity to get out of the hook, to get off the hook. So now she's also, I can't do Ashvin. That was the question. And he said to me, he said, I didn't hear. Says the Gemara, based on what you're interpreting now, the opinion of Yeshua. You tell me the case is that she took the vow, he didn't nullify. Question is, whose fault is it? Yeshua holds it's her fault. What do you mean? If that's the case that she took the vow, Mali hadira b'sev nishbis, Mali nishbis b'dira. What's the difference if she took the vow before or after captivity? There's no harama. She's the one who took the neder. What does it have to do with him? So Ella says, you're right. That's not the approach to answer. La'ilam the adr ihu. Truth is, it's like we originally had assumed. We're talking about where he took the vow. And still, it doesn't have to be that the machlekes Rabbi Shloimy Schwartzberg is machlekes Abaye and Rav. Because v'Abaye metades l'tamei, Abaye will explain according to his reasoning to say that it's not a machlekes tanoim, right? Everyone holds like me. And also, but Rabbi metades l'tamei, Rabbi's going to answer according to his reasoning. How so? So the Gemara explains. Abaye metades l'tamei, Abaye explains according to his reasoning. He goes through the cases. Amalekah and Gadol, which was the case Abaye and Rabbi had disagreed in the beginning of the daf. He says, Kulam leplegi, no one disagrees, the old hold like me. The chayiv levdaisa, that you have to redeem her. Why? Because I could recite regarding this almana, both in the beginning of the Tanai when they got married, and at the end when they're coming to fulfill it. It is vadrinach lemedinasech. So although it's something else that makes it has to be vadrinach lemedinasech, ultimately it's vadrinach lemedinasech. So it fits into the words of the ksuba. So too mamzeres in the sinyal Yisrael, the second case Abaye spoke about. Kulam leplegi, no one disagree. They're gonna all hold like me. The einachev levdaisa. In that case, you don't have to redeem her. Why not? Because I cannot say, not at the time of the Tanai, and not at the end, because the Mamzeres and Zin was always forbidden to the Yisrael. So, no, you don't have to redeem her. Now, regarding the case of the Brisa, Madid Eish, meaning not yet the case of the Brisa. The question is, what's the case of the Brisa? The Machlekes Abaye and Rabbi is the Machlekes Rabbi Shloimy Schwartzberg only by Yisrael, or is it also by a Kohen? So Abaye says one more case. He says it's not the case of the Brisa. Madid Ishes Kohen Nami. If a Kohen makes a vow prohibiting all benefit for him from his wife, which originally when you made the Tanai, it was Hadrinach lemedinasech, and that could take effect at the time of the Tanai, and you could also fulfill it at the end, because even when you took the vow, it doesn't make a difference. When she's taken in captivity, it's also going to be Hadrin Lachem Medasach. It was always Hadrin Lachem Medasach. Every Yeshiv Kain becomes a Surah Labala. So Kulam Lepligi the Chav Abdais. Says Abaye, no one disagrees in that case. Everyone's going to agree with Sure that you have to redeem her because I'm a Kain Gadol. That's the same thing as Amal Kain Gadol, where it's a Dava Achal Garim law that you have to have a Hadrin Lachem Medasach, which you always have Hadrin Lachem Medasach anyway. Ki Pligi, the Machlekes was only B'mada Eishes Yisrael. When a regular Yisrael makes a vow on his wife, where originally when you made the Tanai of Yitzvinach into that was fit when they got married, for that to take effect, but at the end, you cannot fulfill that because there's a vow prohibiting benefit. So you can't be Yitzvinach into anymore. That's the Machlekes. What's the Machlekes? Rabbi Eliezer Azla Basa Meikara. He goes based on the beginning because there's two variables. If you notice, we were saying in the words of Rashi all along. There's two moments that we're discussing. There's the moment that you made the Tanai Ksuba, which when you got married, and then there's the B'shas Maisa when you're coming to fulfill it. So it's Seif Maisi Machshava Techil. You have the Maisi of the Machshava. In the Machshava, when you got married, you wrote in the Ksuba certain words by Svinach Le'intu. And then when she's finally taken captivity, question is, does that fit into that category? So Rabbi Eliezer goes based on the beginning, which is when they got married, such a woman, a regular woman to a regular husband, it's Va'isvinach Le'intu. Now, although subsequently he makes a vow and now she pivoted to come back to him, that doesn't disqualify her from Va'isvinach Le'intu, from that she technically can't, but that doesn't discount her from the categorical inclusion of those words. Sure, she goes after the end. But I said at the end, there's a vow here prohibiting him from her, so therefore, can't say it's not into. So therefore, she's not going to have the obligation of being redeemed from the husband. That's how Abai is going to explain the machlekes. Rabbi explains according to his reasoning. He says no. Among the Kohen Gadol, the widow married to the Kohen Gadol, and this is the second case also. He disagrees with this on Abai, as we mentioned already in the beginning. Mamzeres and the Sigli Yisrael. No one disagrees in those cases that you don't have to redeem her. Meaning the Amana, why don't you have to redeem her? Because that Hadrinach Lemedinasech is not because of the captivity, it's because of something else. It's the Isha Amana. And Rava disagrees with Abai on that. Rava holds if it's because of something else, it doesn't qualify. Even though it's Hadrinach Lemedinasech, it doesn't make a difference. It's not because of the captivity. In the case of Mamzeres, you also can't say Vasvinach Le'intu, not in the beginning, not at the end, because you're always forbidden to that Mamzeres. And the Yisrael's Kesuvos says, I'm going to take you back as a wife. That's obviously forbidden for a Mamzeres. He says, but Kipli, when did they disagree? And he disagrees on this too. What is the case talking about? B'madre, when the husband takes a vow, Bein Eishes Kayin. This is what he disagrees with Abaya. It says, whether it's the wife of a Kayin, where in the beginning, when the Tanai was made, you're going to say, V'hadrinach, I'm going to take you back because of the captivity. And at the end, because of something else, Lemedinasech, Ubein Eishes Yisrael. Whether the wife of Yisrael, where originally it was Vasvinach Le'intu, and at the end you can't have Vasvinach Le'intu, there you're also going to have the machlekes, because if you recall, Rava was saying, you don't really qualify for Vasvinach Lemedinasech, for the Eishes Koyin. Because of the neder, it's still dava achad that's garima, and Rava holds that if it's something else causing, that doesn't fit into the words. It's not oisminach lemedinaseh. What it means? It's lemedinaseh. You take her back to her father's house. Yeah, but it's not because of the shviyah. It's not because of the captivity. It's not because of the captivity. Then that doesn't qualify for the Tanai Ksuba of having to redeem her. That was what Rava disagreed on by, and he's learning that into the machlekes over here. He's saying that also they're disagreeing about, because that actually would make a prohibited. Question is, again, do you go basa mikara basa l'b'sayf? Rabbi Elazar basa mikara goes based on the beginning, and therefore you can be chayiv, because both by the Eishes Kohen and the Eishes Yisrael, that they were regular kosher wives when they got married, but you made a ned at the end, thus prohibiting you to take her back, either for a wife, or even if you're going to take it back to Medinasech, but you have to take it back to Medinasech for a different reason, because of the neder, not because of the shviyah. Okay? So Rabbi Elazar says that's going to be okay, because you go based on the beginning. Sure, so it goes at the end, and therefore you're going to not have to redeem even the Eishes Kohen. This is where Rabbi disagrees with Abaya, even though anyone's going to make Medinasech Medinasech. Yeah, but you have to take it back to Medinasech because of the neder, not because of the shviyah. And therefore, that's how they can explain. So it's not necessarily the machlekes hanon as machlekes amarom. Each one is going to explain it. The same idea. You go based on the beginning when you made it or at the end. Question is it also including the case of Eshes Kohen, or is it only including the case of Eshes Yisrael? Because Eshes Kohen is very unique in the sense that you're going to have a Shvinach Limit Naseh, but the question is, it's going to be because of something else. And would that qualify for the words of the Ksubah to say that you're chayav to redeem her in such a case or not? Now the Mishnah continued and said, different halachas regarding this halacha of Shia, Nishbis. The woman is taking captivity. We said one of the Ksubah is that you have to redeem her. So Tarma in the Brisa that halacha of Nishbis b'chaye bala. Let's say a woman's taking captivity when her husband is still alive. Then during the captivity, husband has a heart attack. He's so in pain for this thing, he dies. Now, says the Bryce, it depends. If the husband knew about the captivity before he died, he was notified that his wife was taken captive, and he became obligated when he's alive to redeem her. Then the inheritors take over that obligation. They have to redeem the wife of their husband, of the father. I mean, it could have been a stepmom, whatever. Now, let's say the husband didn't know about it. It was, let's say, wartime, this and that, who knows, whatever. He got shot, and he never found out that she was taken as a captive. Then the inheritors have no obligation to redeem her. Now, the Gemara brings a story related to this. That Levi thought to do a story like this price. So that is, if the husband found out about it before he died, then the Yarshim have an obligation to redeem the wife. On that, Rav said to Levi, this is what Reb Chia, my uncle, which was his father's brother, said. Allah is not like this brisa. Rather like in the following brisa. Nishbis la'achar misim bal. If a woman was taken in captivity after her husband died, the orphans have an obligation to redeem her. But not only that, and this is the case that it disagrees on, even if she was in captivity when her husband was alive, and then her husband died, no. The orphans do not have an obligation to redeem her. Why not? Don't they take over the father's obligations? Yes, because again, this goes back to the halacha we're discussing here in these daf, how to translate the words of the Ksubah. I cannot say because there's no husband, and therefore there's no obligation of redeeming the mother, and therefore they don't have, even if the father was alive and he heard about it before he passed away. Now, continue on this halacha of redeeming the captive woman. Talking about Melinda Bryson. Nishbiz, let's say, okay, they took her for ransom, she's in captivity, and the hostages are there. They want 10 times the value of her. So we have a machlekes what to do. So the first time he redeems her, after that point on, if it happens again, if he wants, he can redeem her. If he wants, he doesn't have to redeem her, because the rabbis only instituted a redemption of one time, not more than that. He says, as he continued to Amid Beis, says that says, no, you never redeem a captive more than their value. The reason they tikkun ha'olam, because of the rectification of the world, because we don't want people to get used to taking captives, and it's going to be very costly. So we never want to redeem them more than their actual value. Now, the Gemara makes it deep. It sounds like a bechtei demeyin. Sounds like, okay, but if it is their value, and a person has a certain value, how much they're worth on the market, sounds like pagan, then the husband would have to redeem. Even though the redemption money is going to be more than how much her ksuba is worth. Problem is, Bermina, that seems to contradict another price. Because the Brisa says, Nishbis, if a woman is taking captivity, and we're asking for 10 times more than her ksuba is worth. So the Tanakama says, okay, the first time you redeem, like he said in the first Brisa, you have an obligation one time to redeem. What happens again? Stop living in the Congo, and if he wants to redeem, he can redeem. If he doesn't want, he doesn't have to redeem. And that's the one that we're asking the contradiction on. He says, wait a second. If the redemption was according to the equivalent, because if you recall, the equivalency of the redemption is because of the ksuba that he's getting from her, that he yarshed. So if it's the equivalent, then you redeem. Imlav, if not, if let's say they're asking for more money than the ksuba he would inherit from her, in the paida doesn't redeem her. Why? Because you can't have what's secondary to be more severe than what's primary. The t'nai ksuba cannot be more than the ksuba itself, and the t'nai ksuba is to redeem her, and the ksuba is worth less than how much they're asking for the redemption. You don't have to redeem her. The one thing is we see is that contradicts the first brisa. The first brisa made it sound like only can't be more than how much her value is, but it could be more than the ksuba is. The second brisa, Ben Gamliel is saying, no, it can't be more than the ksuba is. So the Gemara says that's not difficult, because Rabbi Shloimy Schwartzberg today Kuli Isli, he actually held of two leniencies. It can't be more than her monetary value that she's fit to be sold as a person in the marketplace, and it can't be more than the ksuba. Whichever one is lower, that's the one. But Taisa actually points out, it's interesting, he says that although there's halacha you can't redeem more than a certain amount, but he says that ishtika gufa, since a person's allowed to redeem himself for whatever amount of money it is, he says for a wife, even in contrast to a daughter, a wife is different, that they would possibly be allowed to redeem no matter how much money it is, because it's like redeeming yourself. And ishtika kagufa, but al kaponim, here what we're seeing over here is that we have a machlekes. The first time you got to redeem whatever it is according to the Tanakam. After that, you don't have to. And according to no, the first time, even then, it can't be more than the amount of how much she's worth and more than the suba itself. Now we said in the Mishnah that loksa, that if she became sick, so he has to heal her. He has to pay for the treatments. Now talking about in the Braisa that we have machlekes. So the widow gets fed from the estate of the orphans, and if she needs medicine, so that's just like sustenance, because they're both a person's necessity of living. So just like mezainis, he has to give sutta, he has to go ahead and do refuah. He said it depends. Refuah sheyesh like kitzvah, if there's a set amount for this medicine, for this treatment, so nisrabas miksubasa actually. She actually has to take off that doctor bills from a ksuba. The reason for that is because food has no set amount. So refuah that has a set amount, which she's not always sick, is not the same thing as mezainis. So therefore, then she actually has to pay out of her own pocket. If it's a type of treatment that there's no end, she always has this condition, then actually that's going to be like mezainis, because that's the same thing. Mezainis there's no end to it. It's not like, oh, I'll give you for Tuesday, Wednesday, and then after that you don't need food anymore. You always need food. So if it's a treatment that you always need, that's the same thing. If it's a treatment that you don't always need, it's a set amount, then actually it's not the same as mezainis. Now, Rabbi Yochanan, he says, Asar causes down by Eretz Yisrael, they made the bloodletting in Eretz Yisrael, Kidafua she'in lekitzvah, like a healing that has no set amount, meaning they would always do it. There was a very Talmudic treatment that they did, and therefore it's just like mezainis, and therefore that does not come out of our own pocket. That has to come from the orphans. Now, the Gemara brings a story created to Rabbi Yochanan. The relatives of Rabbi Yochanan have a lahu itas abba. They had their father's wife, meaning the stepmother. They had a widow every single day. She had to have a certain treatment, and it was obligated, just like mezainis, because it has no set amount, and it was costing them a lot. This widow was eating up the whole estate because of these expensive treatments, and just like the insurance companies are trying to dump off such a person, we don't want to carry such a load. So also came to Rabbi Yochanan, they came to Rabbi Yochanan, what should we do? So Amalu, he said to him a good chap. He said, Ezilu, go, kutu loy midi l'rayfe. Go to a doctor that he's going to take on himself that her treatments will have a set price. For $10 million, I will treat her for the rest of her life. Oh, that is a set amount. That's a kitzvah. So that she has to take out of pocket. And now you don't have to pay for it anymore. So Amar B'Yechon says, we made ourselves like lawyers, like someone who loves one of the litigants, and he's trying to flavor up his points to the judge, and he's preparing the case in front of the judge to find merit for that person. That's what's called Orchei Hadayanim, the lawyers, because they arranged the judges to turn over their heart for the benefit of one person versus someone else. Because look what I did, I gave them an idea to deprive this widow from her doctor bills. So the Gemara says, wait a second. Meikar in the beginning, when Rabbi Yochanan gave them the idea, my Sava, what did the Rebbe hold then? Well, the Saif at the end, when he regretted, my Sava, what did he hold then? So the Gemara says, the Rebbe always had a cheshbon. The question is what it was. Meikar, so in the beginning, he had a pasuk in Yeshaya. It says, from your relatives, you shouldn't turn a blind eye. So he felt he had the responsibility to his relatives that they shouldn't have to lose their whole estate on this widow. So at the end he held Odom Chashav Shani, but a distinguished personality is different. They're going to be writing him up in the papers that Rabbi so-and-so said that you can go ahead and his widow throw out on the street and make her pay for her own doctor bills, although maybe he's right, but at the end he had regret because of that, the appearance of what that looks like. Now continuing the halacha, the next Mishnah, which continues with the Tanai Ksuba that are not written in the Ksuba, but nonetheless, there's an obligation that the husband has to the wife. Says the Mishnah, let's say Loy Kasabah, and that's the theme of this Mishnah. All these Tanai Ksuba, even if you didn't write it, you have an obligation to it. So let's say Loy Kasabah did not write to the wife that he's marrying the following words that are supposed to be in the Ksuba. But then Dichrin Dehavi Lechi Menai, your male sons that you're going to have from me, Inan Yartin Kesef Ksuba, they're going to inherit the money of your Ksuba, meaning if you die before me and I'll inherit that, they're still going to get that from me. Yeshal Chulkoin Demachurin, more than the portion they get with their brothers, meaning the wives of another, the sons of another wife. Meaning he was telling his wife, if you die when I'm alive, I'm going to inherit you, so then your sons will take your Ksuba. What's the difference? Who cares? Anyways, we're all dividing. No, because maybe that Har Ksuba is more than the other wife's Ksuba. Or maybe, even if they're the same amount, but maybe the other wife has many more kids and you're going to have a few kids. So it's better for your kids to take your ksuba and let the many take their mother's ksuba, even if they're the same amount, because you're still going to get more because you're sharing it with less people. So even if this was not written chayiv, he's going to be obligated to Tanai Bezin because it's a stipulation of the court. That's one Tanai. Another one is Benon Nukfin, regarding your female children, your daughters, the Havalechim Menoi that you're going to have from me, Yahavin Yasmin Bevesi Umesaznan Menichse. They're going to sit in my house and they're going to get fed from my estate until they're taken in by men that they get married. Even if he didn't write this, that the orphan girls are going to get it, Chayiv is obligated against you tonight because it's a stipulation of the court. The third one is you are going to sit in my house and get fed from my estate all the days of your widowhood in my house. Even if he didn't write this, Chayiv is obligated against you tonight because that's a stipulation of the court. Now, says the Mishnah, this is how the people of Yerushalayim would write, like we just said. But yeah, they also, the people in the Galilee, they also wrote like the people of Yerushalayim, like we just said. The Anshe Yehuda, the people, there's different areas. There was the Judea, Galilee, Hevel Yarden. But the people of Yehuda would write differently. They wouldn't say until all the days of your widowhood. They wrote until the inheritors want to give you a ksuba. I mean, until she gets a ksuba, she's still part of the family. Once she gets a ksuba, she's out. So, but in Yehuda, the husband wrote the option of up until the Yerusha want to give you the ksuba, then you're out. Not like she chooses to take the ksuba when they want to give it. Let's think of the the Mishnah. If the inheritors want to, they could just give her the ksuba. Unless they get rid of her, and she's not part of the family, and they don't have to feed her anymore. That was what they wrote differently than the people in Yerushalayim. Now, the Gemara goes back to the first takana that we mentioned, that you have an obligation, even if you didn't write it, is that your male sons will take their mother's ksuba. Why did they institute this halacha of the ksuba of the male sons that, anyways, the husband inherited his wife? So why did they institute that her ksuba is going to go to her sons, which was hard Nadunya, but it really was already yarshin by her husband? Says the Gemara, that's for a reason, because we want the person to jump. We want him to write a big natan, big Nadunya for his daughter, like he gives to his sons, where if she dies, her sons will inherit, and because if not, he's not going to want to write a big natan. He's like, okay, you're going to take it when she passed away. I'm going to lose this part of my whole family tradition, and we worked hard for this. This is in our dynasty. So that he should write a big natan that he's going to go to his Einekluch. Therefore, we instituted this halacha. The Gemara wonders, is there such a thing? The Rachman on the Torah says, a son's supposed to inherit. A daughter's not supposed to inherit. Like the Pasuk says, Mamin b'chav zayin. Ish kiyom, if the man dies with ben ein and he has no son, then it goes to others. But if he has, his son inherits, not his daughters. And the rabbis come along, and they institute that the daughter should inherit, meaning that the father should give her from his money that was really appropriate for his son to inherit. Would the rabbis go ahead and institute such a thing that you're going to give it? We want him to give a huge nod to his daughter, and that's not going to the sons, but the sons are supposed to inherit their father's money. So this concept is also biblical, that the daughter should get it. Where do we find it? Because the pasuk in Yirmiyah. Pasuk says, take women, and that you should have sons and daughters. That's one part. Continues the pasuk, take for your sons women also. And also a third thing says the pasuk, your daughters you should give them to men. So the Gemara wonders, I understand your sons, that's in the hands of the father, where he could try to find a wife for his son, because that's the norm, that the man tries to find the wife. But his daughters, you think it's in the hand of the father of the girl to get a wife, to get a husband for his daughter? How many men would love to get for their daughters? But it's not the norm for the woman to find the man; it's the man finds the woman. How can he create a husband for his wife? Says the Gemara, obviously what the pasuk is coming to teach us is there's a passive way to get a husband for your wife. How so? Get her all dressed up, get her all fancy, and give her something. The people will jump on her, but us, and that's why they're going to come to marry her. So in a passive way, you actually could get a husband for your wife. You see, biblically, there's a pasuk that tells you that you should give a big nod to the daughter. Says how much should a person give for his daughter? Up until a tenth of his estate. But the Gemara has a question. What?
You can use it for mass money.
You can use it for nice money. It's a good shayla. You can use nice money to get the daughter married off. Yeah, so we said stucca. We said stucca you do all the time. Says the Gemara, Ve'ema say that since the reason is so that a person should have, that people should want to marry his daughter, meaning that we said the father. The reason why we said that the children get the mother's ksuba is that the father-in-law, meaning her father, should want to give a lot of money to not for his daughter. Then you should say as follows: the av, when the father gives a nadin to his daughter, that nadin is latest. That's what her son should inherit. But the baal, the rest of the ksuba of the husband, which is that he has an obligation to give, of the 100 or the 200, or what the husband adds on, that loylecha in the ksuba, there's a few things. There's what the father gives and what the husband gives. Why are you saying that her children inherit the whole ksuba? They should inherit only what the father gives. That's the whole point. You're saying why they inherit, so that he should give a lot. But the part that the husband gives, her children should not inherit that. Says, well, yeah, okay, if that's the case, the father's also going to hold back, and he's not going to write that to his daughter, because this guy's particular, that he's not giving his part to my grandkids, I'm also not going to give. You're not giving, I'm not giving. So therefore we have to have that what the husband's writing is going to go to our kids, because he's like, if she's not giving, he's not giving, I'm not giving. The Gemara says, since the reason is that we want, again, that the grandfather, the father-in-law, should give a nod to his daughter, the aim maybe say heicha the kasavat. When the father writes a big nod for his daughter, then lichtev bal, then the husband should write the tnai ksubas b'nin dichrin, but heicha lo kasav av, where the father does not write an adunya to his daughter, lo lichtev bal, the husband should not write the tnai ksuba of b'nin dichrin, because it's only for the father to give. If he's not giving it, why should our kids inherit his 100 or 200 that he's giving, or his tasevas? The rabbis don't differentiate between different types of ksubas. Since most ksubas have a nadin, they didn't differentiate even when the father does not give, they're still going to go to her kids. But then the Gemara asks, again, since the reason of the nadunya is that where there's the whole point is because of the nadin, that we want her father to give. So the question is, when he has no sons from her, he only has a daughter from one wife, and he has sons from the other ones. So ask the Gemara, Bas bein habanim nami teros. A daughter among sons should also inherit. In other words, that single daughter should inherit her mother's ksuba to get the nadin that her mother's father gave. Why are we saying it's only benin dichrin? Why is it only the male sons that are going to inherit the ksuba of the mother? Yeah. So I'm saying the point is that you want the grandfather to give. So if you want him to give, so why is it only going to be sons? And let's say there's only a daughter, she's not going to get that then? Says no, she's not going to get it because kenach l'shavin and abundant. The rabbis made it like an inheritance, meaning the words of the ksubah is yirtun. That yirtun kesek ksubasayach, a daughter does not inherit when there's other sons. Even from other wives, she doesn't, it's not part of the Yerusha. So the Gemara says, okay, but I have another question. Bas ben habanis. Let's say he has a daughter from one wife, and he has daughters from the other wives, and there's only girls, teres. So that singular girl should inherit her mother's ksuba to get the nadin of her grandfather, because even if you consider it as a nachla, there is a mishpat of nachla when there's only girls. They're all inheriting. So why then wouldn't she get the ksubas benin dichrin, we call benon nukfin, whatever it is? Why is it only by male sons? So the Gemara, like plug rabbi. The rabbis do not differentiate regarding the halacha of the ksuba of this ksubas benin dichrin, that when it's a daughter amongst other boys from other wives, she doesn't take. When it's a daughter amongst other daughters, then she does take. They're not going to differentiate. Usually you don't take, and therefore she's not going to take. We only made it by male sons the way Yerusha usually is. But then the Gemara has another question. Again, since the reasoning is because of the nadin of the woman's father, so b'tigvi mimetaltali, she should be able to. They should be able to collect the ksubas ben different from metaltalin. Why do we say on the avnunim base that just like the sons only inherit from karka, which we explained this to among ksubas ben different, so we said that the daughters only get fed from karka. Why? What shaykhs? Why is it only from karka and not from metaltalin? If it's really just to get the ksuba, the nadin of the grandfather, why would that be dafka karka? So the Gemara, yeah, but ksuba shabbat, the rabbi made it like a ksuba. It's part of the tnoi ksuba, and metaltalin of the orphans are not meshubid to the shtar. For in metaltalin, it's only karka that are meshubed by orphans, so therefore they can only collect from karka. Then the Gemara says, wait a second, if you're making like the ksuba, titachem mishabdi, then you should be able to collect from mishabadim just like the ksuba is. And later on we have machlekes in beginning of Perek Alpha P. If you could, but why? You should be able to like the ksuba. So the Gemara, yeah, but year to tanat, we still said it's like Yerusha, so it's like that mitla, it's like that middle thing, and Yerusha doesn't collect from mishabadim. But then says the Gemara, I must say one last question. Avagav the like a moisa dinner. We mentioned this already in the previous daf, that the way you split the ksubas ben indichin, the Gemara is going to tell us later on the Tzadi Alf and Alf, is only if there's at least a dinner more than the two ksubas of their mothers that you'll have a biblical Yerusha. Why? Even if there's not an extra dinner more than two ksubas, they should take the mother ksuba, like the ksubas ben indichin, because the whole point is to get their grandfather's nadin. So why would you say if there's not a moisa dinner, they don't get that? So the Gemara says, because the mokum they call eker nachla da'iraisa, because we're going to be uprooting the biblical nachla, because the rabbinic nachla, but the kin rabban, the rabbis did not institute that this nachla will uproot the biblical nachla, because what happens is that the father has an inheritance that is supposed to be divided amongst his sons. When you have another leftover dinner, when then they're going to be dividing, so then they can each take their mother's ksuba, which is rabbinic nachla. But if not, if you're going to have exactly the amount that when they take away the mother's ksubas, there's nothing left, so there's no more nachla, you're not fulfilling the biblical halacha of nachla, then they didn't institute the rabbinic nachla of ksubas ben nich, and that's why in that case, you're not going to have this halacha, although it's really because we want them to get it, but that we wouldn't make a rabbinic nachla, which we want that the grandfather should give a big nadin, we wouldn't do it if it's going to uproot the biblical nachla. Thank you to any time.